Everybody, we are really, really excited to dive into today's conversation. Um, um, we are going to be talking about plant deep and harvest quick. Um, so, what do we do? How do we move the work that we need to move on a compressed timeline? Um, so, again, to look at one of the things we talked about last week was that progressive candidates win when we are clear about our message and we are clear about the math. When we know why we are running, we know why we are supporting candidates, we know what's at stake, and we are clear about the math, how many votes we need, how many people we need to reach, and how many volunteers we need to reach out to the people. The clearer we get about that, the better we are. Progressive campaigns are a tremendous tool that can be used to move people. And a lot of people are stuck in these places on the left, in these places of stagnation. And if you've been engaging with people, talking with people, trying to get volunteers to come out, trying to get people to commit to vote, then perhaps you have encountered people who are in these places, who are in places of inertia, who are places where they just feel stuck, places of apathy, not really caring what's happening, or feeling hopeless about what's happening, places of fear, really worried about the future, and worried, especially fear to the extent of fearing that nothing I do is going to make a difference anyway. And so why get involved? Everybody is corrupt. The system is rigged. Why does it matter if I get involved? Feeling isolated, feeling alone in this, feeling like there are so many forces that are aligned and it's just me out here. And why does my one vote matter against all that's happening in the world? Or feeling self-doubt. What can I do? I'm only one person. What does my voice or my vote or my volunteer efforts, why does that matter? And what we want to do throughout the campaigns is not just get people elected. We do want to do that, but we also want to activate people, to motivate people, to get them out of those places where they feel stuck and move them into the places where they feel like they can have an impact and change the community and the world around them. And so we want to move them from inertia to urgency, to feeling like not only can I move, but I've got to move and I've got to do it now. I've got to get out and vote. It is important and it is urgent. To move from apathy to anger. It is okay to be angry about the things that are happening. Sometimes the anger is the most logical emotion, but anger can help us to move. It can help us overcome what seems like barriers and challenges to move from fear to hope, believing that something different is possible, something better is possible, hope that we can do something together, from isolation to solidarity, that it's not just me out here by myself, it's not just my community by itself, but there are communities who may have different interests, but are working together, who are willing to stand together and fight together and work to make sure that nobody is taken advantage of or oppressed or taking their rights, having their rights stripped away, but everybody is in this together. And moving from self-doubt to feeling like you can make a difference, that your voice, your vote, your volunteer time, all of that not only matters, but it can help make a difference in what we are experiencing. And so this is what the campaign ought to be doing, and how we activate and motivate people is when we can move them from one to the other. So one of the best tools to be able to do this, to be able to motivate people, is the one-to-one. It is a conversation that is at the core of a lot of practices of community organizing. And it's a conversation that's primary purpose is to establish or deepen relationships. It is a way that we connect with somebody. It's an intentional conversation that is designed to uncover their self-interest. It is to help someone gain clarity, to help them cut through some of the confusion or fear or concern that they may be experiencing, so help them to gain clarity. And then sometimes it's to help get information that we may need about an individual or a community. But we always say this is the least important thing, that if we can do the other three things, that is what's most important. And so this is the tool we use. Normally, when we talk about one-to-ones, we talk about them being 40 minutes long. We talk about it being a 30 to 40-minute conversation where I am doing 70% of the listening and 30% of the talking. Something that happens face-to-face, that we try not to do one-to-ones, definitely not over the phone. And if we can help it, not even virtually, but to be in space with one another, where we can see somebody, where we can see their body language, where we can be connected. We talk about it being a knee-to-knee conversation. It's designed to look for what is good in someone. And it is a planned conversation. It is how we help to uncover someone's story to help connect them in. And so to have a good one-to-one, we say you need three things. Number one, you need curiosity. You need to be interested in their story. If you are not interested in people, then it is hard to connect with them. But be curious about who they are and how they move in the world. It takes courage, courage to be fully present and to avoid the distractions that are easy to fall into or fall victim to. Also, courage to ask difficult questions. One-to-ones and often requires us to probe or ask questions about things that many people don't naturally talk about. The kind of polite conversation that we have at a lot of social gatherings is not the conversation of one-to-ones, that this is a really deep conversation, and I am engaging as somebody who is initiating the one-to-one. I am choosing to be courageous to ask questions that I would not ask in more surface level conversations, but I'm going to go deep with this person. And then it takes compassion. In these conversations, you have to be non-judgmental. You have to first and foremost care about the person you are talking about. If you ask a courageous question for somebody to talk about something that is particularly hurtful or upsetting, or ask them to be vulnerable, and then you react with judgment, or you react with harsh criticism when somebody is vulnerable, then you have lost that person. But you have to be in a place of compassion to be able to hear what might be hard or complicated stories people may tell you about moments in their lives that were that they were not particularly proud of, but you are being compassionate to hear them and not judge them based on something that they have done or something that may have happened to them. So this is the tools of one-to-one. If you've done any community organizing training, I'm sure you've heard this multiple times and have engaged in these conversations. But here's the challenge, is that community organizing takes a long time. Um, one of the one of the challenges that we experienced when I was doing community organizing in Ohio was that there was a lot of pressure for us to build something overnight, to go into a community and build something in a matter of weeks or a couple of months, and that's not how community organizing works. That it takes years to be able to build something that is meaningful and powerful. I started doing community organizing in Ohio. I started in 2010, and it wasn't until 2014 that we were able to build something powerful enough in the state to be able to challenge our state government when they tried to take away our early voting rights and abilities that we had just gotten in 2009 after the 2008 presidential election. And they tried to strip it away in 2014 because they were worried about the vote for Barack Obama. And so they tried to steal that, they tried to take that away. And we had to stand up and fight to be able to hold on to the early vote. All of the people who had been activated for Barack Obama, we had to stand up to be able to hold the early vote. And it took years to be able to develop that kind of power. In elections, you don't have years. If you have 1 year, that's amazing. But most of the time when you are running campaigns, you are operating on a very condensed time schedule. And so you don't have 40 minutes to talk to each person you want to volunteer, let alone all of the people that you vote. So how do you do this in a compressed time period? Well, one of the gifts of elections is that it gives us a central rallying point that we can begin the conversation with. In community organizing, most of the time, we are trying to find what people are interested in, what is motivating them, so that we can find something in common with a group of people to be able to call them together, to think of themselves as something bigger as a collective than who they are individually. When you have a campaign, you already have your central rallying point. So you don't have to find that with a lot of people. You just have to figure out how people connect to the rallying point, to the candidate or the campaign that you have. And so these are questions that you can use to dive in. And what I want to do is to actually invite you right now to just practice answering this. So if you would just take a moment and think about this and write in the chat responses to if you are working on a campaign right now, what is it that excites you about the campaign? If you are not working on a campaign, what is it that excites you about this election season? About the issues that are at stake or the opportunities that are available? What is exciting you right now? A second question, what do you hope is different this time next year? After you've elected the candidate you want, after they're sworn into office and they begin to take critical votes and to move on an agenda, what do you hope is different by this time next year? And then thirdly, what is the biggest challenge you or your family or your community is facing? And so we're just gonna hold right here, let these questions sit. And if you would, just take a moment and answer one or two, or if you have answers, all three of these questions, so that we can just type them in the chat so that we can see them, so that the fellow participants can see your answers to these questions. What I hope you see as people are responding to these questions, is that with one simple question, you can find a place to enter a conversation with somebody about what it is that is motivating them, why they are here. And then all it takes is a quick follow-up question behind that. Why is it that this is important to you? What have you experienced that makes you feel this way? Where are you seeing young people participating, and why is that exciting you? It's one quick follow-up question to help give someone a little more space to engage in this, and now you have taken a step in with someone to uncover their self-interest, what excites them, what motivates them, what they hope or believe may be possible, and figuring out ways to be able to plug them in now and say, to invite them to be a part of a group doing this. So it's no longer just you having this hope, or you being excited about this, or you seeing this challenge, but now you can become a part of our team that is doing this. You can become a part of the Maxwell Frost team to help elect somebody who is going to move. You can help be a part of the Summer Lee team to help get somebody in the Congress who is going to be a champion. Whatever the campaign is or the candidate is, you are now inviting them to take their excitement, their hope, or their challenge and bring that into the team so that together we can go and accomplish or go and face the challenge. So when you get this information, what you're going to see mostly is that people show up in one of three basic ways. There are three types of volunteers that you tend to see. And so we want to talk a little bit about what those types are and how to best use them. So the first is, I'm here for the candidate. I am here because I am excited about this candidate. I am excited about their story. I am excited about who they are and what they represent. When I first made the transition from community organizing and issue-based campaigns to candidate-focused campaigns, this is what I was. I was here for the candidate. I started working, volunteering, and then ultimately working for a candidate who was running for city council in Cincinnati, Ohio. Maybe you heard of her. Her name is Yvette Simpson. And who she was, her story, why she was engaged, how she showed up in city council, motivated me, excited me. And so even though I had never supported a candidate in that way, I said, I'm going to knock doors. I'm going to go to community meetings. I'm going to talk to people who I am connected to and have conversations. And I am going to go support Yvette when she was running for city council. And then again, when she ran for mayor of Cincinnati. And so that's who I was, here for the candidate. People who show up for the candidate, you'll get a lot of first timers there because this is the candidate that excited them. This is the candidate that motivated them. And other people had run before and they may have voted in every election, but they weren't excited about somebody until this person ran. People who show up for the candidate are likely to have a lot of energy. They feel themselves and their story connected to the candidate. And so they want to show up with that energy. And so how do you organize them in campaigns? Number one, make sure you hear their stories. If you have somebody who is there for the candidate. Make sure there is somebody that's a part of the team that is hearing that story, because that story may be tremendously beneficial to the campaign. You may want to use that story in social media for a social media post. You may want to have that person tell the story at a rally or an event. There's all kinds of things but you've got to be able to hear their story. Also, you want to hear their story because they are going to feel more connected if they have the opportunity to share that story. If it would be helpful, do a basic story of self-training with them so that they can tell a cohesive story. One of the things that is often hard to do is to translate why I am excited and why I am motivated into something that I can share publicly. And especially people who don't do a lot of public speaking need help with that. And if you can do a little bit of training with people around how do you share a story, tell a story in a cohesive manner so that it can help move people, that story can be used, it can be shared, it can be a great asset to the campaign. And then you want to help spread their contagious energy. Somebody who is there for the candidate, you want to help them spread that excitement with as many people as possible. And so when you're bringing in new volunteers, when people are going out on doors, if you have people who are doing first time engaging and you want them to help be excited or to overcome their nervousness, partner them up, pair them up, get them in contact with somebody like this to help spread that energy. Here are ways to think about where do you place them in a campaign. Volunteer recruitment calls. Somebody who is excited to volunteer, you want them to invite other people to volunteer because that excitement is going to translate in how they ask. They're also a little less likely to take the first no, or to avoid making a hard ask if they are excited. So use them to make volunteer recruitment calls. Secondly, to move a volunteer up the ladder. If you've got somebody who has shown up one time and you want to invite them to come back a second time, if you've gotten somebody who has shown up to make phone calls and you want to see if maybe you can get them out on doors, if you've got somebody who is doing something and you want to see if you can move them up to a deeper level of engagement, let this person have that conversation. For the same reason, that excitement, the person that you have that is excited, that is doing something, that excitement and contagious energy can help spread and help move a volunteer up the ladder. Make them the captain of a special shift or ask them to invite their friends and family to join them. And then let them kick off that shift with their story. We see this, people do this a lot with elected officials or with endorsing organizations. When we show up with DFA as DFA on the ground, they invite us to kick off a shift and to share our story about why we're excited about the candidate and to go out. Have this person do the exact same thing. Have them tell them, let them know, next Friday, you're gonna be the captain. We want you to be the captain of our door knocking, canvassing next Friday, and we want you to share your story. Could you invite 3 or 4 friends to come? Do you want to invite your family? We want to make it a big deal and celebrate how important you are to the campaign. And so, because this is your shift, we want you to invite anybody who you would like to, so that they can see how much we value and appreciate you. And so do that, and so help them not only share that energy with their friends, with their contacts, with people who might not volunteer for the candidate, but might show up because of that person. And then all of the other volunteers and other people that can hear that story and be energized by it. The second type of volunteer is person who is here for the issue. I may like the candidate, I may appreciate the candidate, but really why I'm here is I am here because of an issue that is at stake. I am here because the court struck down Roe, and I am agitated or angry or afraid about what my state is going to do. I am here because I am worried about police brutality against unarmed Black people, and I want to get somebody into office that's going to help hold police accountable. The candidate, I might like the candidate, but really why I'm here is about the issue. Most of the time, this isn't always true, but most of the time, people who show up on a political campaign because of an issue are a part of a group that has been talking about or working on the issue before. And so to that extent, they've probably done some level of work before. They've probably done some level of phone banking or reaching out to people or trying to lobby or some kind of engagement around this issue. And so how do you organize somebody like that? Number one, maximize their knowledge. If they're coming in and they have experience and they have a skill set, go ahead and use that skill set. If you've got somebody who's done banking before for an issue, use them not only as a phone bank, but as a phone bank captain. Use their experience to help other people, to show them your system and see if they can help train other people or get other people acclimated. Maximize their knowledge and use them as their area of strength. There is nothing that is more frustrating as an experienced volunteer when you have a set of skills that you bring from other places and people don't tap into it. Or they misuse you. They use you to plug a gap over here when you could add more value over here. So these are people you want to use them in their area of strength and then help free up other people if possible, to fill other gaps. And then how do you best activate people who are there for the issue? Maximize their outreach to their group member or list. If they've been working on an issue before, then they are likely connected with other people who are concerned about that issue or excited about that issue. Use them to maximize their outreach to that. How can we help connect with the people you are already connected to? Find out how their groups can be supportive or play roles in the election season, often outside of endorsement. If they are working on a group that's a 501c3, that's a nonprofit, or even if it's not formally structured, but they don't make political endorsements, there are multiple ways that they can be helpful. They might be able to invite the candidate as a speaker to an event that's talking about the issue. So the candidate can talk about the issue and why that issue is important and at stake in this election. They may be able to help do GOTV messaging and do GOTV work that is not connected to the campaign, but to be able to go out and talk with their group about how do we turn out the vote and get out the vote because this issue is important. Or they may be able to host a public issue forum. A lot of NAACP chapters every year, every major election, hold forums where they are inviting candidates who are running for office to talk about the set of issues and where they are on the issues to help make that clear for people. And so they may be able to hold an issue forum that lifts up questions, particularly around the issues that they are focusing on, where your candidate can go and get a chance to talk to members of the group in their audience to help talk about their stance on the issues and why supporting them is important for people who are concerned about this issue. And then I am here for the movement. And this is somebody who may like your candidate, maybe they just can't stand your opponent. This is somebody who normally has some idea of the big picture that's happening and how they want to move in the big picture. People who are doing movement work, who are thinking about movement work, normally they are proficient in some aspect of field work. Normally, these are people who are willing to talk to and engage with people. And these may not be the warmest people. People who are deep movement people may not be the best person. They might not be the chummiest person in the office, but these are people who want to get in and they want to get out and they want to work. And so think about how do you use them in ways that maximize their efforts. So one thing, put them on an island. If you have somebody who is doing movement work, who is interested and is focused about how do we get out and turn out to vote in this election, that might not be a person that you want to be at all of the kickoff stuff, because that's the person that's normally looking at their watch, that the rah-rah speeches, they've heard rah-rah speeches before. It doesn't excite them. It doesn't move them. Let them get out and work on their own. Give them their own turf. Give them the freedom to move. Especially if them having the freedom to move means they are going to be more productive than bringing them in. We had people like this on several campaigns that I worked on, where the thing they did was go out. They would go out to the toughest areas. They would knock doors nobody else wanted to knock. They weren't afraid of being in areas that other people would have been afraid. They just wanted to get out there and maximize the vote. They wanted to talk to people and try to convince people that they knew other people weren't talking to. And so it was a waste of time to try to bring them into the office for every kickoff. We would just give them whatever they needed and let them go out as quick as possible. Let them work alone or work with similar minded people. You don't want to put somebody new with somebody who is like this, even though they have experience and can help show them, but they're likely going to be frustrated by having to work alongside somebody who's new. They will either feel frustrated because they can't do as much as they would like to, or they will leave the new person out there alone and go operate, and then that new person is swimming in this by themselves. So either let them work alone or partner them with people who are of similar mind and similar focus, so that they can go and extend that extra energy. Questions. Questions you have, thoughts, things that this conversation has provoked.
Has anyone on here done this kind of organizing before and have any nice stories or any tips or tricks about the organizing that you've done?
I wasn't the main organizer, but I was involved in the Obama campaign in South Carolina. And I did miss most of the presentation, so I'm sort of coming in blind. But I mean, especially when I joined, I mean, I was hearing some tough talk from people. I mean, some things that most volunteers wouldn't want to have heard. But I was able to talk to a lot of people and move past that and get more energy. And I think that was important in getting other people on board. And I just want to bring that in, that you just got to go ahead and talk through it sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's yeah.
If I can also add, I've worked as an organizer for the New Georgia Project, as well as the Progressive Turnout Project. And I'm currently working as a political coordinator on 2 campaigns right now. One that's a California state level campaign. The second is for a candidate that's running for the mayor of Houston for next year. Um, I know one thing that I try to tell to some of my field reps, and something that I try to keep in mind when I do speak to potential voters, is to be mindful of your who, your what, and your why. Who you're, supporting, what are they doing about it, and why are you out? Well, what's your purpose behind this, and why you're doing it? So I feel as though if you maintain those 3 W's, that also tends to help.
Yeah. Yeah, it is great. I'm reading some of the comments in the chat. It is always great when candidates show up with volunteers. That just always adds an extra level of energy um, for people to be able to engage. Um, I think uh, candidates, when they are running, um, they have a type of local or regional or district wide star power um, because so many people are used to um, seeing people on flyers or seeing them in commercials and not seeing them face to face. But when they show up on a door, when they show up at volunteer events, when people show up to make phone calls or write postcards or go knock on doors for a candidate, and then the candidate shows up with them, that just adds such extra energy and excitement. It can help people um, feel closer and deeper connected to campaigns. And Ed, even though you came in late, we'll make sure you get the information um, so that you can have all of the things that we share today. But we were talking with connecting. How do we connect deeply and quickly, particularly with volunteers and people we want to volunteer, but also with voters, with potential voters, and also with staff. If you haven't had these conversations with people who are on campaign staff, particularly for campaign managers or field directors or other people who are in leadership of campaigns, if you haven't had conversation with the people who are reporting to you about why they are there and what's important and exciting to them, to have that conversation right away. It helps to change a lot of the conversations that have to happen later down the line, accountability conversations, those can happen a lot better when you are connected to and understand why your staff are showing up.
Nelson mentioned about some of the people that like to just get out there, but I also like to point out sometimes you feel that being in with the pack, you can feel energized. I mean, when Oprah Winfrey was called in to speak along with Barack and Michelle Obama, I mean, you could feel the energy. And sometimes that's, so much more. And even the people that feel it and just usually get out there, can feel charged up too, especially if they're having a rough spell.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I remember when I was running the field program for a vet's mayoral campaign, we had a person who was like that. They were a type 3. They loved the vet and they appreciated the vet, but they weren't really there for a vet. They were there for the movement. They were there trying to get um, a progressive candidate in the mayoral seat, and they could not stand the incumbent. And so that was why they showed up. And as much as we could, they always asked, can you just give me my stuff? Can I come in 15 minutes before the kickoff and just go? And then when we were going in some neighborhoods, they would say, can I not go to this neighborhood, send everybody else there, but can I go over here where the turf is harder, because that's too easy. Everybody over there votes. I don't want to talk to them. I want to go. And so we did all of that work. But when Jim Dean came in to speak, you better believe they wanted to be there to hear Jim Dean. And so we made sure we told them about people who were coming in, and they decided whether or not they wanted to show up. And so they didn't, they might have attended 2 kickoffs the entire campaign. And one of them was when Jim Dean came and spoke. They were there for that one. So yeah, that's absolutely right. So if there are no other questions about this information, today was session 2, Plant Deep, Harvest Quick. Next week, we are going to be doing session 3, the field is everywhere. And so how do we take this field plan that we have and use it in ways to help maintain motivation in the campaign? When we are having conversations with people or organizations who are endorsing us, how do we use those conversations to strengthen your field campaign? I'll just tell you, one of my biggest frustrations is when I see a candidate that has 50 names on their on their list of endorsements, and I sit down and I talk to the campaign manager, I talk to the field captain, and I say, what are the people who are endorsing you? What are they doing? How are they helping? And they don't have an answer for that. Those people ought to be thinking about, they ought to be invited to ask to help take part of this field plan and to deliver around it. So how do you use people to strengthen the campaign? And then how do you talk about momentum and success? What are ways that you can help share that information so that your voters know about it, your community knows about it, and even media and press know about it? Oh, and then session 4. we're going to skip the week of the 29th, and then on October 6th, we are going to talk about GOTV and how do we prepare for the push? How do we manage the chaos? How do we plan for all of the help that comes in? The people who you could not get them on the phone, they wouldn't respond to a text message, they never showed up, and then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks out and everybody shows up and everybody wants to help, and you have more people than you have space. How do you plan for that and navigate that so you can maximize all of that energy and minimize the chaos during those final weeks?
Thank you, Nelson. I just put the night school session RSVP page that you're looking at right now. I linked it in the chat. Make sure to click on that if you want some more information about the sessions that are upcoming. If you're here, that probably means you've already RSVP'd because you RSVP'd to all of them at once. So you'll get reminders about next week's session as well as the 6th. But just so you have kind of a plan moving forward, that's what we're going to be talking about in the future. We also have a member meeting on Tuesday. You don't have to be a quote unquote DFA member or a volunteer if you just want to learn more about what DFA does, meet some of our cool candidates that we've endorsed, give feedback about what you want to see from DFA in November. We'll talk about what our efforts are going to look like and how you might be able to plug into those efforts. I just put the RSVP to that in the chat as well. We would love to see you there. There's absolutely no commitment as a result of that meeting, but we would love for you to join one of our volunteer shifts closer to the election as well. And we have so many different opportunities to see you between now and November. So I hope that we see you at least one more time. Yes, thank you, Hillary, always reminding me. So if you would like to save the chat, click on the 3 dots right next to, you see type message here, and then there are 3 dots up in that corner. Click on those 3 dots and you can choose to save the chat. When you close out of this Zoom, it'll pop up in your Finder or your Windows or whatever, however you see your documents on your computer, and you will be able to click on a file and it'll show you all of the chat. So you can see all of the links that we've shared, all of the stories that people shared, and it's a nice way to keep track of and make sure you are able to see all of the links after the meeting as well. All right, any final thoughts, any fun facts, any concerning things you would like to talk about before we hop off for the night and I go eat some long-awaited dinner? All right, y'all, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you. We're excited to have this new generation of activists in the field, knowing what is up and how to do that organizing and the stuff and field stuff. And it's just so refreshing to see all of you here. So join us on Tuesday for the member meeting. Join us on Thursday for the next night school session. Join us on October 6th for the following night school session. We will see you soon. Have a wonderful night.